Imagine having a sworn enemy, that one person who annoys you just by breathing near you. Now imagine that, out of nowhere, you two end up married and even have to live together. Well, that's exactly what happened to Saito. In the middle of high school, he's walking through the school hallways toward his classroom. But before he can enter, Akane, a very beautiful girl, appears in his path. And she's not there to be friendly, far from it. She grabs his tie and, with a sharp glare, gives him a warning. If he tells anyone about their marriage, he will regret it. Yes, they just got married. And the worst part, Akane is, without a doubt, the most unbearable person in the entire school for Saito. 4 days before this tense moment, the two were already at each other's throats. Akane scolded Saito because he wrote in the class log that nothing important happened. To her, this proved that he had no commitment, but Saito didn't care. To make things worse, she also got mad at him for not erasing the blackboard at the end of the day and leaving a Chinese proverb about demons written on it. To him, it was just another meaningless thing. As they argued, Himari, a blonde and super kind girl, stepped in to defend Saito, but Akane wouldn't back down, insisting that he was irresponsible and disrespectful. Himari, however, noticed something interesting. Akane seemed obsessed with Saito. That caught Akane off guard, but the truth was, just looking at him made her want to punch him. In the middle of this chaos, Shisei, Saito's cousin, appeared. She was so adorable that all the girls in class admired her. Seeing them arguing, she asked if they were fighting again. Saito tried to defend himself, saying it wasn't even a real fight. Akane just picked on him for no reason. Shisei comforted her cousin, while Himari jokingly suggested that maybe Akane had feelings for him. But the idea was so ridiculous to both of them that they denied it immediately. To them, even if the world ended, they would never be together. After school, Saito got a call from his grandfather Hojo asking to see him. Saito refused, but his grandfather didn't take no for an answer. After all, Saito was the heir to the family's massive company. Since he refused to go willingly, Hojo sent his men to pick him up by force. Inside the car, Saito asked where they were taking him, but the driver remained silent, following his grandfather's orders. He then learned that the company had almost gone bankrupt in the past, but his grandfather turned things around, transforming the business into a tech empire. And now, Hojo was still in control of everything. When Saito arrived at his grandfather's house, he was in for a surprise. Akane was there too. Confused, she asked what he was doing there. Saito replied that he had been forced to come, and guess what? Akane's grandmother had done the exact same thing to her. Already annoyed just by being in the same place, the two started bickering again. But soon, a luxurious car pulled up, and inside were their grandparents, who clearly had big plans for them. The grandparents had something big in mind. As soon as they entered the house, they were greeted with a celebratory feast. But Akane, looking displeased, only drank water, saying she lost her appetite just by being near Saito. Never missing a chance to tease, he remarked that she must have some kind of special pheromone that makes people lose their hunger. Instead of scolding them for their childish argument, the grandparents just laughed, reminiscing about their own youth. Saito, already losing patience, asked why they were there. And then came the bombshell: the grandparents wanted them to get married. Both of them were shocked. The grandparents explained that they had met in high school and loved each other, but because of silly fights, they never ended up together. Now, they wanted to unite their grandchildren to fulfill the love that never happened. Of course, Akane and Saito immediately rejected the idea. They said no one could force them to marry. But Grandpa Hojo had a plan. He brought out a stray dog and declared that if Saito refused the marriage, he would leave the entire company and all his assets to the dog. Saito was outraged and called his grandfather crazy, but Hojo was willing to do whatever it took to get what he wanted. Meanwhile, Grandma Chio pulled Akane aside and whispered something in her ear. Whatever she said was so terrifying that Akane's face turned pale instantly. Then, Grandpa Hojo gave them an ultimatum. They had 3 days to decide what to do. On their way out of the house, Akane asked Saito if he really intended to marry her. Saito didn't know what to say, and instead asked what his grandmother had told her to make her so nervous. But Akane refused to tell him. He insisted, but she remained silent. That night, Akane lay in bed, lost in thought, remembering the day she got furious after Saito surpassed her in the school rankings. Feeling confused, she called Himari and asked what she would do if she were forced to marry someone she didn't like. Himari answered without hesitation that she would refuse because she already liked someone else. Akane was surprised and wanted to know who it was. Suspicious, Himari said she couldn't reveal it just yet. Then, Himari asked if Akane liked someone. Akane replied that she just wanted someone to disappear from the face of the earth, which would solve all her problems. Jokingly, she said that if she met that person right now, she'd punch them in the head. Laughing, Himari suggested that Akane should accept the marriage since it might be fun. But Akane didn't think that was a good enough reason. She was still worried about certain things that came with marriage. Himari agreed and jokingly suggested that she just have 20 sets of quintuplets. Akane, outraged, said her body wouldn't survive something like that. Meanwhile, Saito was also deep in thought. Marrying Akane seemed like a massive mistake. Shisei noticed his concern and asked what was wrong. Saito explained that if he wanted to inherit the Hojo company, he'd have to accept that his grandfather would control his life. Already used to her grandfather's absurdity, Shisei asked what he truly wanted. Saito replied that he wanted the company, but he also wanted his freedom. Shisei sat on Saito's lap and told him that no one can have everything in life, that everyone is bound by a world full of rules. Jokingly, she said that if he decided to give up the company for freedom, she'd be willing to become a beggar, and they could search through trash for food together. Saito laughs, but knows that's not an option. Shisei understands that he he needs the company to achieve his dreams and promises not to stand in his way. Still, she assures him that he can always count on her. The next day, Saito meets with Akane to discuss an agreement. 3 days later, they go to their grandparents to give their decision. To their surprise, they both accept the marriage. Neither of them knew the other would make this choice, but each, in their own way, realized it was the best path. Saito assumes the wedding will happen after graduation, but his grandfather quickly corrects him the ceremony will be immediate. Not only that, but a house has already been arranged for them. With no way out, the young couple is taken to their new Homea, freshly built and fully furnished house. To make matters worse, all their belongings have already been moved there, and the entire marriage process is finalized. There's no escaping now. The grandparents say their goodbyes and leave, ignoring Akane's protests as she desperately begs her grandmother to take her back. But it's no use. Now, the two are alone in the house. As soon as they step inside, Saito locks the door. Akane panics and accuses him of wanting to kidnap her and do indecent things. Annoyed by the absurd accusation, he explains that the door can be opened from the inside. To prove it, Akane opens it and steps out for a moment. They explore the house and find several boxes with their belongings. Everything is perfectly arranged, and despite her reluctance, Akane can't hide her excitement. But she quickly remembers that the only problem with this perfect house is Saito. He fires back, saying she ruined his dream of having a bachelor pad. While checking out the bathroom, they come across a huge heart-shaped jacuzzi, which makes them both extremely uncomfortable, especially Akane. Meanwhile, Saito finds an office, which he plans to use as a way to escape his grandmother's watchful eyes. Suddenly, a scream comes from the master bedroom. Saito rushes in and finds Akane frozen in shock, staring at a single bed. Furious, Saito calls his grandfather to complain, but he gets a blunt response. That's marriage! They can't sleep on the couch or the floor, they have to share the bed. Meanwhile, Grandma Chio wishes her granddaughter good luck with the married couple things she'll be doing that night. Akane is horrified, insisting that she'll never do anything like that. Meanwhile, Saito starts to suspect that there might be cameras or sensors in the house, monitoring their every move. Terrified, Akane stares at Saito and nervously asks, "You're not going to try anything with me, are you?" Saito has no idea what she's talking about. She crosses her arms and says she's already noticed how he looks her up and down, accusing him of having impure thoughts all the time. But she won't allow any of that, not a chance. With a pencil in hand, she threatens him. Saito, outraged, insists he would never do such a thing, but before he can explain, Akane dashes out of the room. Later, he finds her carrying boxes to the bedrooms and offers to help. Akane immediately refuses, convinced that he just wants an excuse to take her to the bedroom and do indecent things. Tired of arguing, Saito simply tells her to be careful, but the next moment, Akane trips on the stairs. Luckily, Saito catches her just in time. Akane thanks him, but quickly remembers who he is and takes it back. Saito jokes that if she had died on their first day of marriage, he would have been the prime suspect. Foreseeing the chaos, their grandfather had left dinner ready for their first night. Saito heats up his food and starts eating. Akane glances at his pizza, unable to hide her craving. Noticing this, Saito offers her a slice. Akane explodes, saying they shouldn't act like a couple. Saito replies that one doesn't need to be married to share a meal, but Akane suspects ulterior motives. She thinks he wants to eat her in the literal sense. Annoyed, Saito simply pushes a slice toward her and tells her to stop imagining nonsense. Akane grabs the pizza and runs out of the kitchen. That night, Saito finally collapses onto the bed, exhausted. Moments later, Akane enters the bedroom, clearly uncomfortable. She lies down on her side of the bed and realizes how small it is. Saito suspects the bed size was part of their grandparents' plan. He feels the warmth of Akane's body and even catches a hint of her perfume. Suspicious, Akane threatens him if he tries anything. Then, blushing, she admits that she has never dated anyone before. To her surprise, Saito confesses that he doesn't have any experience either. In a way, this makes them both feel slightly more at ease. Curious, Saito asks again why Akane agreed to marry him, but she refuses to answer. She says it's just a formality and she'll follow the rules, no matter how much she hates it. After all, she's determined to achieve her dream no matter the cost. This makes Saito worried. What if one of the rules is that they have children? Akane's eyes widen and she jumps out of bed, accidentally hitting her waist against Saito's hand. Furious, she threatens to break his finger. Saito tries to defend himself, saying it was her own fault. And so, their first day of marriage comes to an end. Now we return to the beginning of the story. At school, Akane threatens Saito not to tell anyone about their marriage. He agrees, but she fears he'll spread rumors that they sleep in the same bed. Saito assures her he would never do that. Akane believes him, but just to be safe, she decides to record his oath. And if he breaks his promise, she'll expose everything to the world. If you made it this far, comment Exquisito below. Huge thanks, and see you in the next video.